Beautiful prayer, sir. Beautiful prayer.
Yes, sir, wasn't it?
All
Yes.
praises are due to Allah. You know, when you need something, you know, you can plead good when you need something.
Was that a big prayer?
Yeah, I'm the Keith Sweat of the Muslim. All praises are due to Allah. So, yes, as I was saying, brothers and sisters, that I consider this to be a special set of S.T.Ws, and we're gonna run them concurrently from today. Normally we do Q&A on Thursday, but Thursday is just gonna be a continuation this time, because what I intend to do, by Allah's will, grace, permission, is to lay out this book, Handbook for Pre-Clears, in such a way that it would help us to, I don't know to what extent each of you have studied the book, have used the book, but we've had it for these last 2.5 or so years, sort of as a guideline for these quote unquote straight wire auditing sessions that we have every Tuesday. And so, you know, when you study things, and that's the beauty of how Allah has everything. I say rigged. I don't like to say rigged. That sounds like something Donald Trump would say, but that's how Allah has it. He has it rigged so that we will ultimately be successful. No matter what, in spite of ourselves, Allah got this thing so that we are going to be successful.
That's right.
And as some of you may recall, you know, these sessions originated out of the desire to want to serve more PCs. PC is, of course, an acronym. I guess an acronym could be 2 letters. That means pre-clear. That means that you're not clear yet, but you have entered into a process that leads to becoming clear. And pre-clear, according to Mr. Hubbard, is really a very special person. And a pre-clear really can be considered the cream of the crop. Because in the pre-clear, to one extent or the other, is an attitude of humility. And we know that we have an entire study guide dedicated to the attitude of humility. And it's something about humility that aids, that is a catalyst for development. See, because when you are humble, then all of your channels to receive aid are open. See, when you're arrogant, you just about close every way that you can be benefit. And that's one of the reasons that the scripture says, seek refuge, or seek assistance through patience and prayer. But this is hard except for the humble ones. So they say you can't. So the Quran is telling you that it's hard for you to pray, to really pray. You know, to give what we call, say, a perfect prayer. You know, what is a perfect prayer? A perfect prayer is a prayer that is effective, that has a positive effect of you actually communicating with Allah, the Lord of the world, the beneficent, most merciful Savior, the Master of this day of judgment in which we now live. So, handbook for pre-clears, you know, we are all pre-clears because none of us are quote unquote clear, but we have all, to some degree or another, dedicated ourselves to study. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to clear up some of this mess that our enemy put in our mind. But even though the enemy have put it in our minds, we are taking responsibility for it. We're not going to give him, we're not going to extend the responsibility to him because he is an enemy. We have to take responsibility ourselves. And as Mr. Hubbard teaches us that you have one of the triangles. When you see the Scientology logo, you see something that looks like an S, and then you see two triangles. One of them is the ARC triangle, and the other one is the KRC triangle. And the KRC triangle is that these triangles are interdependent, which means that whatever affects one end of the triangle affects the other end. If one end of the triangle is increased, the others increase. If one decreases, the other decreases. So we have the KRC triangle, which is effectively the knowledge, responsibility, and control. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to gain control here. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
By Allah. By Allah. So there are so many things that happened between this book, Handbook for Pre-Clears, which I think, if I look in here at the beginning, the copyright for this book is 1951. All right. Wow. That's something, ain't it? 1951. So 50 plus 20, we're talking about 69. This book has been on the scene for 69 years. And I don't believe we even have anybody in this session that's 69 years old. All right. And it was preceded by self-analysis and Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. I'm gonna try to go into this quickly, but y'all know I can get long with it, so I'm gonna try to overcome that fault this morning, because we really.
Brother Martin, you said it was preceded by which books?
Self-analysis.
Okay.
And the book when actually Science of Survival,
Mm-hmm.
The
and
modern science of mental health.
Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. And so, as we were saying, this class sort of evolved out of the need to serve more PCs more thoroughly. Because when you think about it, you are as a PC, as Mr. Hubbard, he said that you are the cream of the crop. Why? Because you have under your own volition decided to do something about your case. Because we know how it is even with the nation right now. Even many of the top officials in the nation, they're not really doing anything other than studying the teaching, which of course we got to study the teachings if you're a Muslim. But the minister gave us this instruction to do something about our case. Because he talked of a time when we would be taught for 20 years. And he mentioned something to the effect that this was the study of Dianetics was the beginning of that 20-year period of education bringing us into the hereafter. And as we were saying, even though the Bible says that all of this stuff is going to happen with the twinkling of an eye, well, the twinkling of an eye does not mean one day you're going to wake up and then Allah's going to wave his magic wand and then everything is changed. Because it doesn't work like that with Allah. We have to understand that Allah gradually, he gives us hints and he gives us the science of how his mind works. He don't do stuff all of a sudden. Sometimes things may seem all of a sudden, but they've been building up to that point.
Yeah.
And so this is the same thing with the people out here on social media now talking about where is Farrakhan. Yeah, Farrakhan been building you up for the last 65 years up to this point right now. And so, so that's how, and so what happens is that, so you have one incident that, like they say, what they call it, the straw that broke the camel's back. That don't mean that a straw, because a camel can carry a straw. It's just that you put one straw too many on his back that brought him to the threshold where his back broke.
Right.
See? And the Quran talks to us about an event, an event that will happen, that will lead to other events. But we have to understand all of these happenings are given to us by Allah in a gradient fashion. He does it step by step. So, as I was saying, first of all, you all have to understand that you are valuable. You and I, we are valuable in the sight of Allah because of our desire to want to do something about ourselves, about our cases, about some of this madness. That, yeah, I'll say, I can say that the devil put it there, but I got to be responsible for it. Hell, if somebody shoots you in the head, are they? You gonna wait on them to be responsible after they shot you? You got to take responsibility for yourself. And that's why the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and all the teachings of Islam, all of this, can be understood in this concept of a KRC triangle, of the ARC triangle. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we must stop waiting for others to do for us that which we could do for ourselves. You see? So, congratulations that you are of the few. You are really the cream of the crop. See, and Allah is blessing us because we are of this type of temperament. So as I was saying, I'm trying not to miss anything that's important, but trying to move as fast as possible at the same time. We as a nation, when we started doing book one auditing, it was very exciting, especially in the beginning. It was very exciting because people were getting audited, and they began to look at things that they had never looked at before, or things they hadn't looked at in a while, and they were able to get some charge off. But it seemed to kind of fade just a little bit, maybe for a lot of different reasons, and I'm not going to say exactly what the reason is. I can't say that I know exactly what the reason is. I can say that it just kind of faded a little bit. But one of the things was, you had a couple of different things, a couple of factors that was brought out, is that people didn't want to be audited because they didn't really want to tell their personal business. They didn't want somebody else to know. And say this was a problem. This is a problem with auditing.
Yes, sir.
Even when the minister came out and he said, well, go ahead on and audit because Allah knows what's happened with you. Allah knows your business, and what's more important, to you having something done about it, having the hickey moved off of your head, and then somebody saw that you had a big hickey on your head, or just your pride of not wanting anybody to know that you had something, placed on your head like that. So you had that one particular thing that was working against us. And see what happens, that is part of the dynamics of what we're dealing with, is that, see, if I sit in front of you as an auditor or as a PC, if I sit in front of an auditor and then I'm worried, and then I start talking about what all happened with Uncle Jim or Aunt May or whatever it is, and then I'm thinking about how you gonna look at me now that I done told you this. What happens is that you're not really in session.
Mm-hmm.
So auditing is, if you're not in session, then no auditing is taking place. You may be, somebody might be saying, is that it? Go back to the beginning and go over it again and pick up whatever additional data you may contact. They can be saying that all day. But the thing is that auditing? See, auditing only takes place when you got somebody, you got a PC that's willing, not forced, not coerced, someone that's willing to talk to the auditor about his or her case in an effort to improve their being in present time, to come to present time. All right? So that's one of the problems. And then the second problem that we had was that it just takes so long. It just takes so much dedication, because if you study the book one, if you study book one and you study what is said about book one, what we were all taught as auditors of book one, that you really need to audit or be audited at least, what is it, once every 3 days. We said twice a week. So now you get somebody running a doggone engram. I mean, you know, them doggone engrams can kind of go, they can kind of go on. If you ever had one run on you, or you ever ran one on somebody, you know, you can go on and on with these engrams. So man, by the time you spend 3 hours on Monday, and then you do 3 hours on Thursday, then oftentimes people did not feel like that they were receiving the benefit that was in line with the time that they was giving up. And so it just kind of began to drop off. People start losing enthusiasm. Plus, there were other factors. See, what we got to realize is that book one auditing is just like when you put out, I don't know how many of you know much about automobiles or cars. See, when a new model of a car comes out,
Yes, sir.
that first year is sort of like an experiment. And because there are a lot of things, when they designed the car and the first time they introduced the car to the public, well, then the car, they never drove the car. They don't know how this car is gonna perform after 25,000 miles, after 50,000 miles, after 100,000 miles. You don't know how the thing is gonna, you don't know how it is. So you have to wait and see, and then you can understand the strengths and the weaknesses of this new car that have been introduced to the public. So is it, in my opinion, I'm just giving you my opinion, I'm giving you my observation, and it is a qualified opinion, it's a qualified observation, even though, you know, I ain't saying you got to see it exactly the way that I see it. Okay, you sharing your screen, Sister Jacqueline? Anyway, so when being the scientist that Mr. Hubbard was, he introduced Dianetics, and then he trained auditors, and then they started auditing, and then they began to discover different things about auditing, what was working, what was not working. You know, what was giving them success, what was not giving them success. And so consequently, after he introduced the science of survival and self-analysis, then he came up with this book. Because this book here was sort of like cut to the chase of book one. This is just like all of the, you know, like you got you have a 1963 Corvette which was the first model that had the Stingray design. All right, so when the Stingray came out and people drove it for a while, well, they say, well, you know, the front suspension on the right, it seemed to wear out quicker. So then they fixed that. And then all of the little faults that became exposed, they started to fix it. So one of the things that they discovered with book one, after they had done a certain amount of auditing, that was that the auditing, it just was not affecting everybody the same. And that's the same thing in the Nation of Islam. Some of us got tremendous wins from book one, but then some of us, and I would say a lot of it would say, well, man, I went through an audited session. It didn't do nothing for me. And I know for myself, I was audited with book one, you know, a few times. I was in the first co-audit that we did back in, I think in 2011 at up at Rosemont. And I could never contact an engram. So I remember Sister Belinda and I, we went to the church. She was saying, well, look, man, we trying to run these things. I mean, and I know good and well I got some engrams. I know I got some, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that part, there's no doubt about that.
How about that? Yeah.
You know, about me having an engram, but when I try to run the doggone engram, I don't never get anywhere with it. I can't, you know, the thing that they talk about returning. I wasn't really returning. It just seemed like I might have got a glimpse of returning every once in a while, but I could never really seem to contact or directly engage my attention on these engrams. And so we went to, Sister Belinda and I went to the church and was explaining this to the lady. And she said, well, a lot of times you can't contact engrams directly because they're not accessible for direct contact due to locks and secondaries. So she was saying that maybe the book Self-Analysis, which is really the first introduction into straight wire, that self-analysis would remedy what the problem was. So I did self-analysis, but it was pretty much the same with me. So I decided that I needed some other kind of auditing because I had heard about brother Anthony in Memphis. He's got a new name, and please forgive me, Brother Anthony, for not remembering your name. And Dr. Eileen.
Muzakia.
Muzakia. Yeah, I think it's got the Z in it, Muzakia. And then and Dr. Eileen, and then then Brother Malik, formerly known as Brother Tony. And they had done what they call life repair at the church. And then life repair, you have something different from Dianetics auditing. What Dianetics auditing is it's really one of the very best. It's like the first model. You know, it's like Dianetics is like an old T model Ford, where the life repair auditing is like you go from a T model Ford all the way up to a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, you know, a very high end. And so, as Mr. Hubbard said in book one, some auditing is better than no auditing, because when you touch any part of any case, then it is the nature of your mind to work on this case and to try and resolve it. And every attempt and effort to resolve your case, it results in a win for you. It brings you closer, really closer to Allah, but closer to the resolution of that particular problem. Now, you may not be able to measure it, but that's what happens. Another problem that we had in the Nation of Islam was that we just really did not understand what auditing was. And then we assumed that we knew. We assumed that we could look at these videos and read the book, and then we assumed we knew. Just like some of us assume now that when we read Message to the Black Man one time, or read through the Quran one time during Ramadan, that now we understand. And of course you do on a certain level, but oftentimes we don't understand on the level that we think we understand. And then that goes back to one of the principles of learning, you know, as Mr. Hubbard has said, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have taught us and the minister have taught us. You know, what happened is that excuse me, and this is what happens with the so-called bean soup scientists that we have among us, is that we know enough, we learn enough to think that we know, but we don't know enough to realize that we don't know. And this is why humility is so important in this, is because once you know, once you learn something, it's quick for them. Your mind is quick to say, oh yeah, I know this, I got this. Because it makes you feel good. When you get knowledge, it makes you feel good.
All right.
You know, it stimulates you in a positive way. But you know how they say, you give a black man an inch, he'll take a mile. That's just something, that's how it is. Why? Because we are needy. Our self-esteem, you know, has been taken from us. We are hungry for self-esteem. We take every opportunity that we can to increase our self-esteem or to try to add to our self-esteem. Jesus said, can a man add 1 cubit to his height? Well, this is what we do, except the black man try to add 2 cubits to his height. All right. So you've got here, you know, these are the factors that we got going against us, is that you've got in the nation, you got people we know just enough about dynamics. And see, you think about it. Poll your friends. Our people in the nation, we know enough about Dianetics to think that we know.
True that.
But we don't know enough to realize that we don't know. And that's one reason why the PCs drop off. So when you have the PCs that drop off, that means that you have a decrease in the number of people that want to do something about their case. And why is that? You know, in the church, they say usually it's because of a misunderstood word. Where you think misunderstood means that you think you understand it, but you really don't understand it. Because many of us, we looked at auditing as, well, man, I need to get audited. Man, I need to get audited. You really don't even know what auditing is. You hear a couple of 2-sentence definitions about auditing, and then we swear we know what's going on with auditing. I know people have come up to me, man, I need to be audited. I need to be audited. Yeah, this is true. I mean, so do I. So do all of us. You go through 465 years of this crap, you need auditing. You need auditing, you need Jesus, you need everything. You see.
Yeah.
All right. So you come, but see we hadn't even embraced Islam totally. We hadn't even gotten out of the spooky concept or the spooky paradigm of Islam yet. So we come to the auditor with unrealistic expectations. Why? We want relief now. I want, man, look, come and fix me up right now. Show me this phone booth, because I know, if you audit me, it's going to be like I'm going into a phone booth, and when I come out that phone booth, I'm going to be Superman.
That's right.
The man of steel.
That's how we want it now.
and so as a result, so when we don't, I'm just saying, you think about it now. You go into a restaurant, say like it's your birthday, it's your birthday, and then so you go into this high class restaurant, and man, you got your, like we say in the South, boy, you got your mouth sat on some good food, and then you come in and the food don't live up to expectation. Well, that creates an attitude in you where you don't really necessarily want to come back to that restaurant a lot of times. So we had unrealistic expectations that was due to a misunderstanding of what really was going on. And I will go so far as to say, because I know a lot of auditors right now that from then and from now, is that auditing is a misunderstood word. And the word has not really been defined. So you have, in order to go into an auditing session, to get the most out of an auditing session, it would help to know what auditing is. And that's why we are asked before we go into book 1 auditing that we view those films where they talk about the engram and so forth and so on. So you'll have an idea of what it is that's going on when you go through the auditing process. But see, this nature, we're waking up, brothers and sisters, out of a very deep sleep. And we're just waking up. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, as the minister articulated to us in our first auditors meeting, he said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that, brother, this teaching is just a wake up teaching. And I say unto you, book 1 auditing is just a wake up teaching in Dianetics and Scientology. This is just to wake you up. But of course, you got to wake up now before you can get up and go to work. Don't go to work if you ain't woke. Don't try to drive your car if you're still asleep. But that's what this is. And so it has a limited, it's limited. That's all you can say. So with all of this in mind, we were getting requests for people wanting to audit us. And that's what happened with brother, when I met Brother Clinton at FOI class. He said he wanted to get audited.
Yes,
and
sir.
so I said, yeah, well, brother, just come on over to, we had just started this class, and where we had started for a minute. But I said, come on over to the class, because the thing was, originally we were trying to use this platform to prepare people for auditing, Because if you go into an auditing session and you don't really know what to expect or really what's going on, then that limits the experience that you receive. So I said, well, come on over here, because this is auditing preparation. And then it gives what we do every week. We go through the theory. What I try to do is teach the theory of auditing, the theory of Dianetics and Scientology, and relate that to what we already have studied, which is the supreme wisdom, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because if you study both of them very closely, you can see the interrelationship between the technology of Mr. Hubbard and the Islamic technology. See, that's what we fail to see when we begin to see the difference in Elijah Muhammad Muslims and Orthodox Muslims is the Islamic technology. What is technology? When you look at the word technology, at the center of the word technology is technique. How do you do it? Technique is a way. Method, if you're in the Methodist church, that's a technique. The method, technique is a method. In this case, the technique was teaching. Okay, so with all of that being said, here we are now dealing with Handbook for Pre-Clears, and this was my first real breakthrough, because in Scientology and Dianetics, and it really came as a result of education. Now, in Science of Survival, and I know Sister Belinda, try to pull that up if you can. What I'm about to say, Science of Survival reveals to us, Science of Survival is the second book by, Mr. Hubbard that they tell us to check out. In Science of Survival, he says that there are 4 valid therapies. You got auditing, education, change of environment, and control of mess. Isn't that right, Sister Belinda? Okay. All right. I see you. Thank you.
Control of what, sir?
Of mess. M-E capital. That's another acronym that we use in Scientology Dianetics. It's called MEST. And it's an acronym that means matter, energy, space, and time. You know what matter is? It's just stuff. Energy, you know what energy is. You know what space is, and you know what time is. So, in other words, so that therapy would be somebody just like somebody that can work that does woodwork. How some people like to go out and garden, because you're manipulating matter, energy, space, and time. An artist, he can take paint and manipulate that mess. He puts that colors on the canvas, and he turns out a beautiful portrait or a painting. A musician, he can manipulate. He can do re mi fa sol la ti do, or sing, or dance. See, all of these are therapies. And so that's why they say, I want to do something with my hands. All right. So that's in other words, the conquering of mess. That's therapeutic because it puts you back in touch with your magnetic north, which is always pointing to Allah. That is the nature of righteousness, but it is the nature of being the creator. Who is the original man, the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. So that's one aspect of therapy. Then the second act, they don't necessarily come in this order, but one of them is education. And this is the one that got me, but I'm going to get to that one later. Change of environment. You ever notice how when you change your environment, how therapeutic that is? And we talked about it even as it relates to Savior's Day. Do you know one reason everybody like to go to Savior's Day? It's therapeutic. Because you go out there, it's a change of environment. You go from having to deal with, Negroes and devils 8 hours a day, then you can spend a whole weekend in paradise with your brothers and your sisters. Change of environment. And then of course, auditing. And what does auditing do? Auditing means that if you're taking this therapy, you're volunteering yourself. You're opening up your book to an auditor to let this particular auditor read what's in your book. Some auditors can read better than other auditors. Some auditors have a little bit more mastery of the craft than others and understand more of the dynamics of auditing. So what we got, the conquering, the control of mess. And I have to say to you, that's been a cognition for me since we've been on this line about the therapy, because I read it and I kind of understood it, but I don't think I've ever really understood it from the standpoint of really how it relates to me, because I can play my piano, and then what that does, that disengages me from my reactive mind. And whenever I become disengaged from my reactive mind, then my analytical mind begins to fix things and reconnect broken connections that have prevented me from communicating with God. All right, so you got the control of mess, then you got the change of environment, then you got the auditing. All of these things are therapeutic. What is therapy? It is an action to repair. Therapy is an action to repair, to bring something back to a former condition, to rehabilitate some aspect of your mind or your body. And he said, and the last one, which is what we're doing right now, this is what we're doing. We're dealing with education, because we have not been educated in Dianetics and Scientology directly how it relates to what we believe in. See, because you study Dianetics and you study Scientology, you study auditing, but you believe in Islam. See, you love Islam. We are fighting for Islam. We would surely win with our Savior, Allah, the universal King, fighting for our nation called by his own. So let us rise, you Muslims, fight for your own. Islam is something that we believe in to the point where we will fight for Islam. You know, I don't know about all that Dianetics and Scientology, but I will kill you over some Islam.
Come on, come on.
You understand what I'm saying? So, but now we are beginning to understand that Islam and Dianetics are really interwoven when we understand it. It's just a matter of making the connection between the two. See, because I forgot what I just said about Elijah Muhammad's version of Islam. He had I guess I get it. But that was a cognition too. But what happens or what's happening is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given us what the Quran says, that I think in the 3rd surah, the family of Amran, where it talks about Jesus, that Jesus, the Messiah, that would teach from the cradle to the grave, and that will reveal the Torah and the Injil and give the book and the wisdom. And see, the wisdom allows, see, when you get the wisdom, and it says the wisdom now, when you get the wisdom, then you can look at anything and you can apply Islam in the greatest way. Because when you look at the Orthodox Muslims, you're looking at people who are really studying something that's very generic, man. You mean to tell me that's all I got to do to be a Muslim? Is say that La ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul. That's all I got to do to be a Muslim? Hell no. Excuse me. That's why what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us was so effective, because he gave us the wisdom. He gave us the ability to soar above the religious rituals and to be able to extract a way of life, a way of living, a way of thinking that will, in actuality, move us closer to God. Not to just declare that we was closer to God on our own by making 5 prayers a day. But he gave us a practical way of thinking about Islam. And he gave us the knowledge of self. He gave us the knowledge that contained the wisdom that allowed us to understand everything. What it says, Islam is everything in life. But we read through the Quran during Ramadan and we don't half understand that book. And you know I ain't lying.
That's right.
And that's why the Quran, and the Quran knows it. Muhammad knew it. He said, read, get what you can out of the Quran. Don't worry about all this other stuff that you can't understand. And that's why we say, even in this particular session here, you may not understand everything that we're talking about.
Right.
But get what you can. Don't worry about what you can't understand. Because one thing about the mind, you may not get it today, but one thing about it, it's in your mind, it's in your memory It's a facsimile in your mind, and
Right.
and at some point in time, it's gonna be useful to you.
Right.
Why? Because we gather in the name of Allah. And wherever two or more are gathered in his name, there I am in the midst of them. So the thing that gave me the most, I went through it with this auditing, man. You know, I couldn't get no love from book one. I couldn't get no love from nothing. Seemed like I went and I took I paid like $2,000 to the Church of Scientology to get for life, what they call life repair. And then for some reason I never could get in session. Now, I don't know. I ain't saying nothing negative or nothing, but I never could really get in session. And then what it was, I had a medical condition at that particular time. I had just came out of I had a heart. Well, it really wasn't heart surgery. It was surgery to repair a ruptured aneurysm. And so my body was doing a lot of weird things. And so when you get on that e-meter, your body has to have a certain amount of stability in order for them to be able to read it properly. So I just never was able to really get any love from that. But what happened was that when they saw that wasn't working, then they suggested that I take the HQS course at the org. It's called that's an acronym that means a Hubbard Qualified Scientologist. So that brings you into Scientology. And so that's another misunderstood word. Because you got people running around the nation. Well, I do Dianetics, but I don't do Scientology. I don't do Scientology. And hell, you do Scientology all day, every day, if you understand. But we don't understand because we got a misunderstood word. And matter of fact, with Scientology, we got a misunderstood concept. With Dianetics, we got a misunderstood concept. With auditing, we got a misunderstood concept. So I guess I can't really say to make a long story short because it's already kind of long. But I want to give you this background, and I really think if you go back and you study what I just said, it will give you a good overview of what's going on even right now in the nation when it comes to this technology, what they call we call the Supreme Technology, henceforth Supreme Technology Workshop. And so after really not having very much success, I resorted to education. Let me see what I got. I can show you this later. It won't be no big deal. But anyway, so I started studying all the books. I started going through what they call the basics. I studied book after book after book in the and took the extension courses. And it got to the point where sometimes I would go out to the org, and then they would start describing some stuff, and they say, "I wonder what that is." And then I would tell them what it was. And, they were looking at me like, where this nigga come from? But anyway, and then we know he came from Allah. He came from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He came from Master Farad Muhammad, to whom all praises are due forever.
That's right.
And so I ran across this book. Well, I didn't say I ran across it. It was in the sequence of studying this book here called Handbook for Pre-Clears. And I tell you, I have made, even to this day, my biggest gains in terms of auditing, and maybe even, you know, education. That's a different thing, because it's so much stuff that you can really learn in this technology. But in terms of auditing, was Handbook for Pre-Clears. And Handbook for Pre-Clears is basically, as I was saying earlier, it is sort of like cut to the chase of book one. And I've read this several times before. I'm going to read it probably several more times before all of this is over with. If you go to, I know some of you all have the spiral. Some of you all have the spiral. And some of you have the, let me see what I got here. I might be able to, some of you got the hard cover, and then some of you got the spiral. Okay. On page 66 of the hard cover, I'm gonna see if I can't. Okay, can anybody see this screen
Yes, sir.
that I'm sharing?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so right here, right down here at the bottom paragraph at page 66. That's kind of interesting. 66.
Yes, sir.
It says, this book by itself will do more for you. That's what being a pre-clear is about, right? We're trying to get this thing to do something for us. It will do more for you than professional processing could have done in June of 1951. Now, mind you, that the Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, was introduced in 1950. So it would do more for you than professional processing could have done in June of 1951, much less June of 1950. Into it has gone an additional 2 years of intensive work and investigation. You remember what I was telling you earlier about the brand new car that comes out? And then so they use that first car, they investigate the wear and tear and all of the different good points and bad points of the car to make the subsequent model better. It says anywhere that this text or these processes disagree with books or data earlier than December of 1951, this book, not the earlier book, is correct. The line of advance has been very consistent, but sometimes, check this out, a superficial student cannot follow the logical advance line. So I know I have been somewhat criticized for using this, but I'm just coming from what the man said. And I said that I'm saying that to give you an overview of what we're getting ready to do. Okay, so when you go back, when you go to the table of contents, if you will, go to the table of contents. And go to how it's to where it says to page 1, where it says how to use this book. Because this is what we're getting ready to do, dear believers. We're getting ready to go into, inshallah, we're going to do some auditing. Because we've been talking all of this theory for the last 2.5 years. And some of us, to certain degrees, have engaged on a certain level with this particular book. But we want to bring everybody, inshallah, what we got. 3, 6, 9, 12, almost, 13 people on the call. All praise is due to Allah. We want to bring, we want to get everybody. We want to get everybody in session. We want to get everybody in these sessions. Now, we learn in book 1 that you cannot audit yourself. And I can understand that because some of the engrams, because you're basically looking for engrams, and the engrams are just, they just so doggone, they just so hard to look at sometimes that you can't do it by yourself. You really need, as they say, the auditor plus the PC is greater than the reactive mind. Everybody have a good understanding of what the reactive mind is, hopefully. If not, you will before we get through with this course of study over these next few days. But he says that you should not audit yourself, because the auditor and what makes Dynetics auditing good is because, see, you got what you're fighting against. You're fighting against your reactive mind. And it's interesting that the minister said that when Iblis said that he was not going to bow down, he said that was the beginning of the reactive mind. All right. So what makes auditing successful or viable is that when you have you are not your mind. You carry and use your mind to navigate, but you are not your mind. So between the auditor, you are the one that's looking into your mind, in other words. So the auditor plus you is greater than the reactive mind. And that's what makes auditing effective, because you can overpower that reactive mind. All right. And even with an engram. All right. But we're taught, as I was saying to you earlier, that the reason that I couldn't even get to my engrams in book 1 is because I had so many locks and secondaries. and we've talked extensively about locks and secondaries. Let's see if I can pull something up right quick that I can. A lock is just, I want you to look in the book and read what the book say about locks. But at the same time, I want you to understand, I want you to be able to talk about a lock and say what a lock is in your own words.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And it's just like, because I want you to be able to say it to yourself. But see, actually what this is, I'm telling you right now, this is new world out of the training. Not saying that this is all you need. What I'm giving you is all you need, even though I believe it is. But, I put it like this. I ain't gonna say it's all you need. I can say that you could, after you get through with these next few days, if you hang in here with me, you will be able to audit yourself. But it's not really auditing in the sense of book one.
Yes, sir.
It's processing. It's called self-processing.
Yes, sir.
Because you're not trying to contact engrams. Because the engram by yourself, you just ain't no match for that engram because you hit the wrong doggone. The engram is just like in World War II, they had all of these minefields. So you walking up the terrain and then you hit one of these mines, then it just blow you away. All right. So handbook for pre-clears is basically, since you can't, many of us had the issue of not being able to reach our engrams because of locks and secondary. The book Science of Survival taught us that most of your aberrations or most of the cause of your not being able to think straight, but look up the word aberration. Most of your aberration is in locks and secondaries. It's not in the engram. The engram is still in the picture because the charge or the aberration in the locks and the secondaries feed off of the engram. That fear that you might have that you don't know why you're scared of this or why you feel in a certain way about this or that, the root of that is in the engram. But unless the engram is in re-stimulation, it generally don't bother you. The engram don't bother you. What bothers you is the lock and the secondary. And the lock is that which reminds you of what happened in the engram. That's simply all it is. The lock just tell you is I'm trying to find this. Y'all just bear with me for a second here. But this is very important because I believe that Allah has called each and every one of you to help in this great work.
Yes, sir.
Locks, when you experience a lock is a everyday moment that you come into contact with that reminds you of something in the engram, and it automatically kind of wires you up to the engram, and all of the pain, suffering, anxiety, grief, or whatever the case may be, that's in that engram, it brings it into present time. You know, because it was dead up to, these things were dead up to the point where you saw something in your everyday life that reminded you. When you got reminded of it, then you brought this fear, this anxiety, this grief, this fear back up into your consciousness.
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is basically what we're dealing with in Handbook for Pre-Clears. We're dealing with locks. Once you can kind of run these and face up to these and recognize these locks that are in you, then it takes part of the power that they have to divert your attention. That your attention should always be in present time. That's what we're trying to do.
Yes, sir.
Present time, because see, when you are in present time, you don't hardly make a mistake in present time.
Yes, sir.
Most of the accidents that you have,
Yes,
they
sir.
were made because your attention was somewhere else. They say, "Oh man, I wasn't paying attention." Well, then what had your attention if you wasn't paying attention?
Yes, sir.
So you have locks, and then you have what they call secondaries. And in book 1, they called it painful emotion engrams. That means, you lost your mother, you lost your daughter, you lost your job, or you lost your car got repossessed, or somebody gave you a real threat that you might lose something. See, think about it. When you're about to lose something, see, that stuff weighs heavily on your heart. And it's got your attention. It takes you out of present time.
Yes, sir.
And it takes you to some of those times that is embedded in that engram. All right. So much for that. Page 1. It says, how to use this book. This volume of self-processing is designed for use in any of 4 ways. And it basically done already told you now that this is a more advanced level of processing even than Dianetics Book 1. I'm not disparaging it. Any auditing is better than no auditing. But why go to New York in an automobile when you can fly?
Yes, sir.
So it's designed for use for think about that, self-processing. So you don't have to worry about an auditor. However, we're gonna get into that in just a few minutes. But it can be used as a workbook to be used wholly by the auditor on the pre-clear. So in other words, we can use this book as an auditor, and you can use this book as an auditor. Because see, we need help, brothers. In the auditing department, we need help. We don't, I want you to come and get this knowledge that Allah is blessing us with. But then what I would like even more is to see you helping somebody else using this knowledge. To get a firm enough knowledge, a firm enough grip on this data, the way you can move out with courage
Confidence.
Yes, sir. So you can use it as a workbook, just as an auditor. You can use it as a homework book to be given the pre-clear for use between sessions. Everybody understand that?
Yes, sir.
Number 3, as a process done by the pre-clear himself with only occasional auditor help. Or as a processing manual used wholly by the pre-clear without an auditor.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
So now he got that much confidence in this data that he said, I'll just give you the
Right.
book and you just do it yourself.
Right.
I don't really recommend that. I kind of like a blend of all 4 things, that we can use it. We can use it as a tool for the auditor, or in this case, I can use it as a workbook for you, but we can also use it as homework, that you take your books and you use it on your own.
Mhm.
But we still come back together and we can discuss, or you can discuss, you can send, the sisters can send their issues in to Sister Belinda, the brothers can send their issues in to me. If you're dealing with certain issues. And then it says, as a process done by the pre-clear himself with only occasional auditor help, or as a processing manual used wholly by the pre-clear without an auditor.
Come on.
So my suggestion of what I think we can do is sort of a combination of all of those. That you take what you understand here and you do the best that you can with the book. But since we are all going through if we're going through the book together, see, if we go through this book together, then we will have the dynamics of the group working with us.
Yes,
And as you
sir.
get further into the book, you'll understand more about what the dynamics of the group is. So I am in the process right now of identifying, because see, everything that's in this book, you know, it's a lot of stuff in this book that they talk about scanning over, lock scanning, and which lock scanning is straight wire. It's like a high speed straight wire. Okay. I'm in the process of identifying certain things in certain chapters in these books. And then what we'll do is as we go through each chapter, we will I will identify certain things that I feel relate most to us. And of course, you are free to bring your suggestions as to what may be relevant. All right. So it says, the last use is possible, particularly when the pre-clear knows considerable about this science from other sources. But it is possible by reading this book alone and with considerable stamina to carry straight on through. So what we've been doing with Supreme Technology Workshop for the last roughly 2.5 years is to basically give you the science, really, of this book from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. To give you the perspective of this of the Dianetics and the Scientology using the congruent and complementary principles that lie in both disciplines to enable you now to take a dive into this wonderful process that Mr. Hubbard has given us. And then we went from we've gone from an automobile, and then so now we with the book one, it's sort of like an automobile, and then so now we're about to step on the train or the bus now. In other words, we're upgrading our mode of transportation back to ourselves. Because all of this right here this is, when you look at this right here, can anybody tell me what principle of Islam is in this?
Yeah. Supreme wisdom.
We ain't got but 5, man. You got a 1 out of 5 chance, even if you guess. No, just
Repetition.
Well, it's Hajj. This is a spiritual Hajj.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because you're coming back to the best part of yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're given here a way to come back to yourself. But it says it is possible by reading this book alone. It said, it's particularly when the pre-clear knows considerable about this science from other sources. But what other sources do we have available? The supreme wisdom. Makes light on all of this. Because all it is, self-processing. What you mean? Process. You're going through a process. What does a process do? It gets you from one stage to the next stage. When we say the resurrection of the dead is a process, you start off saying, oh, there's no God but Allah. The white man is the devil, whatever it is. But then there's a process toward the resurrection. Process toward coming into life. I can tell that I came from death into life because I love the brethren. That's part of the process. That's an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I hope y'all ain't getting bored this morning.
No, sir.
I'm kind of fired up about this myself,
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, because we getting ready to do some things now. We got to do some things because we don't want to just be sitting up here all the time, just talking and pontificating and talk about the knowledge and all this kind of stuff. Let's get down to the nitty gritty and start doing something. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I want you to make sure that you study this. We're not gonna go through the whole thing, but I think I will read this on page 2. We're on page 2 now. I'm going to read it. If this book is given to you by an auditor, which it has, I've given it to most of you all, sold it to you, whatever, he expects to be consulted concerning any difficult points. See, everybody, so it goes back to what we were saying. You know, the unrealized mom said, why rely on somebody else to do for what you can do for yourself? You can process yourself because you know more about what your situation is. And you can take time, maybe even after you get through praying at night or before or after you pray in the morning, you can take you a little time to run some of these processes. And I guarantee you they'll help you. So, but if you have any difficult points, you know, please call me personally. Call Sister Belinda personally. So it says he expects to be consulted concerning any difficult points, and he expects to run out your service facsimile when the time comes by effort process. Now, this is still a very early book, but what it does when you start talking about service facsimile, does anybody remember what a service facsimile is? Okay, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm on the
Look
fourth
it up.
act.
Go ahead, brother.
And I had a question.
Please.
I was wondering if engrams could be prevented if, when the circumstance or the situation is presented and whatever you're going through, you are able to not only understand but to reason with it. Now, would that cause an engram not to form?
Certainly, you can posture yourself to minimize the effect of an engram, but due to the nature of an engram, see, an engram is by definition an incident that contains pain or unconsciousness.
Okay. Then I read this as I was going along. I'm trying to obey you and study this book. It says the human mind's basic purpose in operation is the posing and resolving of problems it observes as related to survival along any of the dynamics. Now, when that happened, when the engram was introduced or the pain was introduced, you found a way to reason with it, but also you found a way to understand how and why it happened. Now, I'm thinking that may cause the engram not to be stimulated or not to be formed.
Right. Well, it's going to be formed because you can't. If somebody come up to you and hit you upside the head with a bat, ain't nothing. Ain't really nothing you can do about that, you know, unless you block it. You understand? I mean, unless you got a hell of a martial arts move that can block a bat or whatever the case may be. Or if you get knocked out, see, that's how the engrams start. See, it starts from you being in a pretty much helpless position. It's something that's been imposed on you. You follow what I'm saying? You know, because if you are able to stop it from happening, if you're able to stop somebody from hitting you, well then, yeah, you've prevented the engram from forming, and then it's not an issue. See, what we're trying to address is once it has become an engram, once you have already been experienced the pain and the unconscious. See. Yes, sir. So anyway, service facsimile. Just study. I just want you to study all of this. So the intention of this book is to decrease your reaction time, which means to put you in present time. If you react real quick, the more you are in present time, the less your reaction time is. That's why they say when people are drunk drivers have bad reaction time because they drink that alcohol and then that alcohol have them into their reactive mind. You know what I'm saying? So it takes them a little while to come out of the reactive mind in the present time. So that affects their reaction time. The intention of this book is to decrease your reactive time, improve your health and efficiency, to extend your life. So that's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said that the scientists live up to 500 years. See? And this is some of the science that they use. And it's not so much that the Scientologists do that, because I think most of this stuff is just really for us. They ain't doing, most of this stuff they ain't really doing. They're not doing it. It's for us.
Yes, sir.
And to check this out, and to extend your life and to immunize you against illnesses.
Yes, sir.
This book is not intended for the people who will usually seek help by reason of severe aberration, neurosis, or insanity. These should be worked upon by an artist. So so that's why I'm saying I want to keep everybody close, not saying, you know, there's a certain common aberration in Black folks. There's a common neurosis in Black folks. There's a common insanity. Not that you are insane, but a lot of this is caused by how we have been trained, how our enemy have raised us up in his environment. He's trained us to think insanely about stuff. And you look at how these people are reacting to what's going on with George Floyd and everything. It's just insanity. The optimum individual to which this book would be addressed for total self-use would be a person capable of considerable action, such as a member of the armed forces, a jet pilot, an artist, a musician desiring to speed his playing time and increase his ability. The address of this volume is to the person who, though normal enough, would like to excel physically and mentally. An engineer, for instance, using this volume could increase his ability to calculate and perform many times over. Of course, all of this is just talking about all of y'all. Don't confuse this science with psychotherapy, psychosis, or neurosis. Just because it handles these easily for the first time in history is no reason it is devoted to the lame, the halt, and the aberrated. This science has as one of its branches the improvement of human ability above what it has been. This book was written to improve the ability of the able. Anyone using this volume as written can increase. Anyone can increase his skills, rehabilitate his goals. That means when you have a goal and then you just kind of, man, I can't do that. I started off, I was trying to do this, but I was trying to get my doctorate degree or whatever it is that you might have been trying to do that you gave up on it. So you can rehabilitate your goals because why? Because you can see some of the artificial barriers that exist in your mind, and once you understand it, then you can erase them on your own, through your own will. Rehabilitate his goals and improve himself considerably above his fellows. We need people like that if we are going to have a better world. Use this book as written. Don't try to combine it with old time mumbo jumbo, gasoline and alcohol. This book and psychotherapy therapy mixed similarly. In other words, we don't really deal with what, the psychiatrist. The messenger never really told us to go to no, I don't think he ever said to go to no psychiatrist. I don't remember the minister ever advising us to go to no psychiatrist. But he told us to go to this. And of course, there are limitations with this. There are limitations. I mean, don't think, because see, some people, like to consider themselves, often more than what they really are. But that's why we have to approach this thing with humility. So it says, use this book as written, and no harm can come to you unless you are a case that badly needs an auditor. And of course, you have an auditor in myself and Sister Belinda. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then I want to go back to. So we're just kind of getting to it. So I want you to read the book on, read chapter 1 on the state of man. Read the whole chapter. Read all of these chapters up to the chapter that says processing. And then what you'll find, and I'm gonna kind of give you a little cheat sheet here now. I'm gonna give you, because I don't want to burden you. I don't want you to feel like, oh man, here you go trying to tell us to do all this kind of mumbo jumbo. Well, not really mumbo jumbo, but just all of this hard stuff. It's not really hard, but read it. But the things that you should get out of this, you should understand that there are certain points that you should get out of these chapters. What is man's greatest weapon? What is your greatest weapon? I heard you, it seemed like I saw you say something, Sister Pearl. Did you say something? I still can't hear you.
Your mind.
All right. I read your lips, but I couldn't hear you. That's right. That's your greatest weapon. So you got to know, you got to understand, you going into battle, where we at in history, the time and what must be done. This is the war of Armageddon. This is the final war between good and evil. So, I mean, we are soldiers. We're Christian soldiers. We're the real Christians, the first Christians. So you're going into war on with Christian soldiers marching into war, marching as to war. Well, then what you going into war with? With your mind. So you got to do, as they say in the hip hop culture, you got to get your mind right, because that's your greatest weapon. And then how would you use your best weapon? What's the best way to use your best weapon? You use your mind to, just like we say, to master yourself and the environment. Why is man successful?
Because he's able to master the environment and himself.
That's very good answer. Very good answer. It says he is successful because he can change.
Adapt.
Which is really what you just said, Brother Fitzgerald. Because to master something, that means that you may encounter it and not be able to overcome it, but then you make the changes. You make the necessary changes that enable you to master.
Yes, sir.
Right. Was somebody else trying to say something? Anaya, did I hear you say something? All right. Question. Yes, ma'am.
Or could it be also by embracing all of the eight dynamic to survive?
Yes, that would certainly lead to success, I would think. And what we're trying to do is through these processes will help us to master and embrace these dynamics, which will lead to success. And so he asked the question, he said, what has man done each time he has failed to conquer and control his environment? The answer is, each time he has failed to conquer and control his environment, he has made wide changes in form and methods and again returned to his mastery. See, every time you fail to conquer, it goes back to what Mr. Hubbard called the theta mess theory, which means that when you're trying to do something, you're trying to accomplish something, and if you're not able to accomplish it, you gather data of the experience that you, when you, he calls it disinterbulate, when you pull back from the thing that you're trying to conquer, and when you take another swing at it, well, now you got more knowledge now. You got the knowledge of the last encounter. You know, just like if I'm a baseball player and I strike out because he threw me 3 straight curveballs. Well, then my next at bat, he know he been getting me to strike on curveball, so now I can look for a curveball, and that helps me, you know, to hit the ball. And hitting the ball is like conquering. All right. Each time he has failed to conquer and control, he makes changes. So the next time I go up to the bat, I make a change in my expectations of what he's going to do. All right. Number 7, what is meant by a slave philosophy? A therapy which teaches that man should adapt himself to his environment rather than adapt the environment to him. Is such a slave philosophy.
Can you say that one again?
Yeah, please.
What the question is, what is meant by a slave philosophy? It is a therapy which teaches that man should adapt himself to his environment rather than adapt the environment to him. It's such a slave philosophy. So why is that a slave? Why would they call that a slave philosophy, I wonder? Can anybody say?
We still trying to write it down.
Okay, that's fine. Well, while you're writing it down, I'm gonna say it. Go ahead.
By adjusting himself to the environment, then he's not mastering it and controlling it.
Yes, sir.
Right.
That's right. That's it. That's really it. That's the answer, really. Because, you know, you look, as we're saying, and see, this is the beauty of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, that, see, this is a class of the gods. We're trying to learn how to bring the God and goddesses, you understand? The God that's in us out of us. And so we understand, well, then what do gods do?
Yes, sir.
You got to understand what a God do to be a God. And even if you're not in sync with your nature of being a God, simply by understanding what gods do, then you are able to, just by that knowledge, to reconnect yourself with your nature. So he says, you know, a man should adapt himself to the environment.
Wasn't that one of the first orders that God gave to man to rule his environment
See
over
that?
the fish, the land, the earth?
See that? See what I'm talking about?
Yes,
That's
dominion,
right.
dominion over the
Exactly.
creatures.
Exactly. See, so all of these is, and that's an excellent example there in itself, because what it does is it's reinforcing. See, because we're not reading from the Bible, but sister just read from the Bible, and so now we can see how these two things are really working together. And see what that does, what that does, Sister Hortensia, it helps to take some of the spook out of it. Because see, some of our people, we think, man, oh man, that L. Ron Hubbard, he's a devil, he's a white man, and you know what I mean? I can't follow what the white man say and all this kind of stuff like that. But the white man ain't doing nothing but saying in more scientific terms what we already believe. We believe in the scriptures. You see? All right.
Yes, Brother Chin. Yes, sir.
All right. So now we go into number 8. Why is it demonstrable law? Demonstrable, in other words, something that you can demonstrate, not opinion, that he who would enslave his fellows becomes himself enslaved. Woo! Boy, that's a hot one there.
Mhm.
Oh man, I read that yesterday. I can't remember. Just think about it.
All right. So he says, each man, and I'm giving you what I'm doing to you, what I'm doing with you today. I'm giving you my training. This is the training that I have. Let me see. See if I can find this. Everybody see that? So I'm giving you, I'm not boasting, even though I am proud.
Yes, yes.
By Allah.
Absolutely.
Allahu Akbar.
That's right. So I'm just saying, I'm not getting up here like some little jackleg preacher, you know, mouthing off about something I don't know nothing about. But I got my certificate here that they gave me, and the supreme wisdom make me understand more about it than they do.
That's right. That's right.
On a certain level. Don't get me wrong now. You know.
Right.
You know, and see, you know, that's why you got to maintain humility at all times, because see, the very minute that you think that you know so doggone much, that's when your blessings stop. You understand? You blew it then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You know, you've closed the door. All right. Why is it demonstrable law, not opinion, that he who would enslave his fellows become himself enslaved? I'm not going to read the answer that I gave, but man, we got a good doggone example of that. Can somebody just respond to that before I say what I'm going to say?
Because you need. The best way I can do it, I remember the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan doing a lecture one day, and he says that the white man did not realize that while he was holding us down, he had to be down in order to hold us down.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. In other words, the white man says, You know, man, these niggas is animals. You know, they don't, you know what I mean? We did them a favor when we brought them over here. So number one, that's a lie. We're not animals. Now, you might have did us a favor, but it wasn't in the way that you thought you did us a favor. So what happens is that when you enslave me, now you are enslaved by the lie that you acted upon to justify us being enslaved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. Yes,
See,
sir.
that's why. See, what we're dealing with here is Islam. See, we're not trying to pontificate or nothing like that. We're not trying to pontificate, even though we might get into some pontificatory actions from time to time. However, our thing, my goal in this thing is to open the channels for you to become a better Muslim. It's to try to show you where another socket that you can plug yourself into that will activate what is already in you. You're already God. You just a God that's in the process of being woke, being awakened. So now at the end of this course on Handbook for Pre-Clears, I'm gonna share all of this with you. Now, this is not to be shared with anybody else, because just by sitting here putting up with me for this 2 hours, you have earned this. And all of this is the data that comes straight from the Church of Scientology. But see, my motivation for all of this is to help to qualify you and me too, to qualify us, that we can help our brothers and our sisters. Even though you might not have a quote unquote auditor's certificate, and I don't even know if they even give you an auditor's certificate for this particular book. But I know that this book will help. It will help you. And it will help you in a lot of ways. It will help you personally. It will help you in your relationship with Allah, because see, Allah wants you to help. See, Allah have put the spirit of help in each and every one of us, to the point to where, you know how you feel when you could have helped somebody but you didn't help them?
Yes, sir.
That's your nature. That's the nature of Allah in you, that you want to help somebody, because that's your Father, that's your reality. Jesus said, who are my helpers in the cause of Islam? But you got to help yourself. What Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, help yourself before helping others. And my wife can bear witness that, being in the airline industry, they say, they give you that warning. They say, if something go wrong with the airplane and that oxygen thing come down, they put the mask on yourself before trying to help somebody else.
Right.
You can't help nobody else before you help yourself. So inshallah, we're gonna be back. We're gonna be back Thursday. I don't know how many of you can make it back Thursday, but we're gonna continue that. Actually, what I've just done, I've given you the first lesson of Handbook for Pre-Clears.
Yes, sir. Sure
So
did.
we're gonna take you through all of. We're gonna take you through this, And see what this will do is that when you get ready to do these processes, then see you will have all of this. You'll be working on all of this data, and your chances of success of your contacting that which resides or that's lying dormant that may be holding you back. And what we do, I'm giving you a dust mop with a clean filter on. So it's 12:04 now, and it's a pleasure to serve you, each and every one of you. And I pray Allah that we will embrace Islam. See, when you embrace Islam, if by embracing Islam, you are installing a filter that will filter out anything else that is foreign to Allah. Can't nobody really harm you. What the lesson said, can the devil fool a Muslim?
Not nowadays.
So we will bring this session to a close, this part of the lesson. And I really was hoping to do 3 other lessons. I was hoping to get through 1, 2. I think there's 12 lessons, if I'm not mistaken. There are about 12. And I was trying to get through 1, 2, 3, and 4 today. But inshallah, on Thursday, we will go through 2, 3, and 4. All right. If you are unable to make it third, I really hope that everybody can get back on, inshallah. I understand if you got other stuff to do, but I'm putting a little extra emphasis on this because we're getting ready to do. We're just not sitting up here listening to a bunch of stuff. I'm preparing you. I'm trying to, by Allah's grace, to help to prepare you to do when we get through with this, inshallah, and we should be finished with this by next Thursday with the whole book and everything. And then you will be able to do some processing on yourself and really on people that people that are willing, people that want to. But now that's the thing that you got to realize. The person has got to want help. So you just can't force help on people. And that's why the minister haven't said a whole lot to us about this. He said there's no compulsion in religion.
Yes, sir.
But when you come to a certain awareness of the truth, then the truth itself is compelling.
Yes, sir. That's
So
right.
I'm hoping that you will come back on Thursday. And you notice I usually don't say that. I just say we're just gonna do Q&A
Yes, sir.
on Thursday. And of course, we always can do Q&A even while I'm showing you this. But I want to. I like for you to be able to just get everything, I don't know how to say it. In other words, we want to just cover all of this stuff, and then we want to get to work with ourselves. We're gonna go through the auditing ourselves. Then, inshallah, with the experience that we receive from self-processing ourselves, we can help somebody else. You go back to page 1, and then you can use the book to help somebody else. but see, they don't, if they're not coming to S.T.W, they don't really have the background. Because see, right now we're teaching the class that never really been taught before. We can't find this, you know. And so Allah has blessed us, but then at the same time, I believe that Allah, you know, he gives us responsibility, because that's what happens when you get knowledge. You got responsibility, and when you take on the knowledge and you take on the responsibility, then the good thing about it is that you gain control. So, is there anything that anyone would like to say or ask before we close out the session today?
Yes, sir, Brother King. Quickly. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I remember when I just came into this technology, brother, you one of the first things I learned was that this technology helps us, will help us to understand supreme wisdom at a faster pace.
Yes,
and
sir.
I can really see the congruency of that. An example of that is right here in briefly on page 2, where it says, this book is not intended for the people who would usually seek help by reasons of severe aberration, neurosis, or insanity. It brings me back to in the nation, I've heard numerous times that we say the mosque is not a mental institution. It's a spiritual institution. So I mean, people were coming with mental issues. We're not, even though you may have skilled people there that may help them, but we're not trained for that. This kind of explains that here. So I just want to bring that out. You know, that's one of the things that it brought to me in bringing to me that yes, like Mr. Farrakhan said, that Heron Hubbard might have met with Master Fard Muhammad to be speaking like this.
Yes, sir. Well, you
That's
know,
it.
we used to say way back when I was over
Can you hear me?
mosque back in the 80s. We used to say though that the Nation of Islam was a mental institution ran by the inmates. I don't know if that's not true today either, but the thing is that, see, you know, Master Fard Muhammad came to the mentally dead.
Yes, sir.
You understand what I'm saying? See, so how do you cure the mentally dead? And the answer is in the Scientology and Dianetics, is that you increase the strength of the spirit.
Mm.
See, you strengthen the spirit, and then the mental stuff get in line.
All right.
You understand what I'm saying? See,
Yes,
so what you're saying is true, but that's a very interesting thing when we think about it, because it goes back to what we say about auditing. See, with the difference between Dianetic auditing and Scientology auditing is that Scientology auditing, Dianetic auditing tries to get you to erase locks and secondaries and all that other stuff. But Scientology auditing helps, the aim of it is to just strengthen the spirit. So even if you got mental issues, you are soaring and operating above them. And one thing that enables you to soar above them is just the knowledge of it. So we go back to the therapies again, which man, I'm still feeling that that cognition I got right at the beginning when we're talking about the 4 therapies, and then we're gonna be gone because it's 12:14 now. But you know, you got auditing, education, change of environment, and control of mess. Woo! So what is control of mess? That's even exercise. When you go out and exercise, what do? You get up off of your rusty dusty. That mean you're controlling your body. See. And see, just to understand, to be able to categorize these things and understand them from the categories, you got a leg up, as they say. You know. So at this time, brothers and sisters, we're gonna bring this this session to a close, end the session, and if you cannot make it on Thursday, and you would like, you know, to catch up by having the recording, you let us know. We're not gonna reach out for you. If you want it, if you miss it and you want it, you can get it. So, but I'm just saying, you know, we got to kind of tighten up this ship a little bit, because, you know, we need to do stuff. It's all right for us to sit up here and say, oh, that's right, all praise is due to Allah. No, we got to get ready to get on the battlefield. And then we start off with the battlefield of our own mind. And then as soon as we kind of get some of this dust knocked off ourselves, we got to get ready to get out into the trenches, you know, and help our brothers and sisters, but with the intelligence that, see, you can't make nobody, you know, you can take the horse or the cow to the water, but you can't make them drink. You know, you got to have, see, it's not going to do you no good if you don't want it. If you don't want to straighten out what's wrong with you, if you're not willing to realize and to face up and take responsibility for what's wrong with you. And then we all, I mean, that's everybody. We all have areas in our life that we tend to not want to take responsibility for. So this is where we need to work. You know, if you're trying to improve your patience, then you find the areas in your life where you are impatient, and you start working on these particular things. You may take the easiest one first, and then you work yourself up to the thing that you're most impatient about. And then believe it, when you work through that, it's going to be something else that comes up that challenges your patience. Because see, patience, man, I'm going to tell you something. See, we take these scriptures too lightly. It says, seek assistance through patience and prayer. Surely Allah is with the patient. Now, don't you want Allah to be with you? Ain't
Yes.
that why we joined the Nation of Islam in the
Yes,
first
sir.
place?
Right, that's right.
You know,
Sir.
so we cannot take, you know, I'm just saying, the technology is right there, but see, we just read over it so much that it begins to not have the effect on us that it did at the beginning. Just like when you stick your foot into some real hot tub of water, hot steam first, and then pretty soon you kind of get used to it. But see, that's one of the things in Scientology, that once you start learning some of the techniques where they talk about how when you practice drills on doing everything into a new unit of time. See, that's what happens when we pray, when we're not mindful of our prayers, is that we're not, see, every time you go into a prayer, you should go into a new unit of time. Forget about the prayer that you made. Forget about Fajr. You're at Dhuhr now. Dhuhr. And when you get to Asr, Forget about Zur. You in a brand, this is a brand new thing. Wipe yourself clean. Create a clean slate in your mind in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. Because you know once you run into some doggone problems in your life, but you be all in a new unit of time then. Because that trial and that tribulation, what does it do? It make you humble yourself. And that's why it says seek assistance through patience and prayer. This is hard except for the humble. So may Allah bless each and every one of you with the light of understanding. And I just sincerely appreciate each and every one of you because Allah has made me to see. See, it's something about you that's different. See, you got a certain amount of humility just even to come on the call.
We appreciate you, brother.
Minister Farrakhan hadn't singled me out to none of you all.
That's right.
Yeah, you come and you recognize the truth, and not that it's so much for me, but I appreciate it because I see my brothers and my sisters responding to the truth, and I see the beauty. I see the beauty of your humility, your willingness, and your desire to do. See, there's a beauty, and you wanting to do something to improve yourself, which ultimately will improve our community. Self-improvement is the basis of community development. That's what we need to develop our community. We need to develop the policing of our community. That's the problem that we're having right now.
Right.
We need FOI as police. Like I said, we ain't gonna have no doggone guns in our community.
Right.
But Lord knows that's gonna do it for the day. By Allah. And inshallah, I hope to see every one of you next on Thursday. And we're gonna go all the way through Handbook for Pre-Clears. And inshallah, after we will actually start. We're gonna start some auditing. We're gonna do some auditing. We're gonna do some online straight wire lock scan, some online auditing. We're gonna audit you as a group.
Yes, sir.
Once we get through this, so what we're gonna so basically that's why it's important. It's very important for you to get the right indoctrination so that the auditing will be as effective as possible. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to ask the great brother Mujahid if he would close us out with prayer.
Yes, sir. Attention, prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Surely we have heard a crier calling to the faith, saying, believe in your Lord, so we do believe. Our Lord, grant us protection from our sins and remove our evils, and make us die with the righteous. Our Lord, grant us what thou hast promised us by thy messages, and disgrace us not on the day of resurrection. Surely thou wilt fail us in thy promises. Ameen.
Ameen. Go in peace. Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar. Love you all.
You too, brother.
Inshallah, we will see you in a
Yes,
couple
sir.
of days.
Yes, sir.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.